is happening? Bitcoin's crashing, AI's melting down, SoftBank's bleeding out, and the Kospi just hit the circuit breaker. What the hell is this, 2008 meets Skynet or what? Trump just posted, and so it begins. Well, guess what? It has begun. And I'm not sure anyone's ready for what's coming. Well, the fear and greed meter just snapped off the hinges. Markets are bleeding, memes are screaming. SoftBank is down 12%. Kospi halted. And Oracle looks like a debt-ridden casino with a fancy logo. Ladies and gentlemen, remember, the 5th of November. And can someone tell me how long I have to trust the plan? Is the plan in the room with us right now? Because the plan right now looks like this. OpenAI has apparently committed to buying $1.25 trillion worth of compute. That's not a number. That's like a Bond villain budget. Oracle's debt-to-equity ratio, 500%. And their net debt to EBITDA, 400%. You could almost run a central bank with those numbers. And Japan's SoftBank, down nearly 13% overnight after Scam Altman gave an interview bragging about infinite compute. Japan watched it and was like, yeah, no thanks. They're not confessing, they're bragging.
How can the company with 13 billion in revenues make 1.4 trillion of spend commitments? And you've heard the criticism,
First
Sam.
of all, we're doing well more revenue than that. Second of all, Brad, if you want to sell your shares, I'll find you a buyer. I just, enough. People are, I think there's a lot of people who would love to buy OpenAI shares. I don't think you would.
Including myself. Including myself.
People who talk with a lot of breathless concern about our compute stuff or whatever that would be thrilled to buy shares. So I think we could sell, your shares or anybody else's to some of the people who are making the most noise on Twitter, whatever, about this very quickly. We do plan for revenue to grow steeply. Revenue is growing steeply. We are taking a forward bet that it's going to continue to grow, and that not only will ChatGPT keep growing, but we will be able to become one of the important AI clouds, that our consumer device business will be a significant and important thing, that AI that can automate science will create huge value. So, there are not many times that I want to be a public company, but one of the rare times it's appealing is when those people are writing these ridiculous OpenAI is about to go out of business and, whatever. I would love to tell them they could just short the stock, and I would love to see them get burned on that. But we carefully plan. We understand where the technology, where the capability is going to go, and how the products we can build around that and the revenue we can generate. We might screw it up. This is the bet that we're making, and we're taking a risk along with that. A certain risk is if we don't have the compute, we will not be able to generate the revenue or make the models at this kind of scale.
Exactly. And
let me just say one thing, Brad, as both a partner and an investor. There is not been a single business plan that I've seen from OpenAI that they're put in and not beaten it. So in some sense, this is the one place where, in terms of their growth and just even the business, it's been unbelievable execution, quite frankly. I mean, obviously, OpenAI, everyone talks about all the success and the usage and what have you. But even, I'd say all up, the business execution has been just pretty unbelievable.
Then there's Michael Burry, the guy from The Big Short, loading up 80% of his $1.3 billion fund on NVIDIA and Palantir puts. He's literally shorting the AI revolution. And the CEO of Palantir is not happy and just lost all muscle control on live TV. The data center frenzy, mark my words, will be remembered as the largest waste of capital in human history. But hey, when the bubble bursts, it just frees up liquidity to flow to the hardest asset on earth, Bitcoin. Korea just hit the circuit breaker. Trading halted after a 6.4% plunge. Japan's 10-year yield is at its highest level since the global financial crisis. The Nikkei's bleeding. The Nasdaq is getting buried. The AI trade was global. And now the dominoes are falling. And when Japan sneezes, the world gets leverage liquidation fever because their bond market is the carry trade for everything. This isn't just an AI bubble, it's a liquidity black hole. Meanwhile, in America, the Treasury's draining $1 trillion from the system like a vacuum cleaner on turbo mode. Here's the real story nobody on CNBC will say out loud. That money is sitting there doing nothing, which means it isn't in the market. When the Treasury hoards cash, liquidity dies, funding costs rise, and Bitcoin gets punched in the face. The Fed was just forced to restart repo operations for the first time since 2019, injecting $30 billion to keep the system, well, from completely snapping. This is what a liquidity vacuum looks like, and when that vacuum breaks, the snapback rally is violent. Historically, when the Treasury hoards cash and the markets hit extreme fear, the reversal that follows is biblical.
And the market for sort of crypto native retail is just more depressed than I've ever seen it. I think that market is close to a bottom. It's hard to find a crypto native investor who still has much enthusiasm for the market. I think the market is shifting into an institutionally driven market. And interestingly, that market is still bullish. When I go out and speak to institutions or financial advisors, they're still excited to allocate to an asset class that, if you pan back and look over the course of a year, is still delivering very strong returns. So my view of the market is we have to get through this retail flush out. We have to hit bottom from a sentiment perspective. I think we're very close to that. And then I'm optimistic that we rally into the end of the year and into 2026 as the institutional investors who are more maybe even keeled about what's going on at a fundamental level in crypto start to drive the market forward. So I'm optimistic, but we do have to finish this washout of retail sentiment. And again, I think we're closer to the end of that than the beginning, but there always could be a little bit more downside.
Institutions know it. They're already buying the fear. The bottom is in when you feel like throwing up. Now, the real question, is $1 million Bitcoin still on the table? Well, we have a clip from GigaChad sounding off. We're about to bring it home, but before we do, look at our likes.
3 or 4 times, maybe.
I'm gonna pump those numbers up. Those are rookie numbers in this racket.
Let's take a quick second for our sponsors who keep this show on the air over at the Bitcoin Way. If your wealth lives in their system, it's not yours, it's theirs. That's why we scream Bitcoin. That's why you self-custody. And that's why you call our friends over at the Bitcoin Way. They'll walk you through multi-sig, self-custody, privacy, how to run a node, and the tools that keep you sovereign when the fiat system pulls the plug. Don't wait till it's too late. Book a free 30-minute consult today using that link in the show notes. Need cash but don't want to sell your Bitcoin? Ledn is the global leader in Bitcoin-backed loans, issuing over $9 billion in loans since 2018, and they were the first to offer proof of reserves. With Ledn, you get custody loans, no credit checks, no monthly payments, and more. Visit learn.ledn.io/simply to learn more and get 25 basis points off your first loan. Bitcoin just broke below 100K for the first time since May. Twitter panicked, CNBC celebrated. But the data tells a different story. This pullback follows the largest crypto liquidation in history. Over 20 billion wiped out in a day. Long-term holders dumped 319,000 BTC back onto the market in October. And CME futures are at their lowest premium since the March 2023 banking crisis. And yet, Bitcoin is still here. The charts look horrendous. I get it, but this setup is identical to every post-liquidation consolidation phase we've ever seen. Slow, heavy, choppy, then boom. The macro tailwinds are too strong. Rate cuts incoming, 401k access to Bitcoin approved, and tier 1 banks all getting exposure. People are panicking like we're going to zero. Stop being a panicking. Newsflash, we've been here before. Some of us rode it from 17k to 3k, then from 65k to 15k, and bought more. You think we're scared of a dip to 80k? What bears, is that all you got? The prophecy has been fulfilled. One day people will panic when we crash to 100k. Today is that day. It's on days like this, when the screens go red and retail runs for cover, that institutions hunt. They feed on panic and buy your Bitcoin cheap. Even the orange man is out here, saddened by the bearishness. Damn it, I gave them a dip. They should be thanking me. Kramer just said we're in a bear market. Hey, cue up that Lynn Alden train gif. Choo choo. The Bitwise CIO says we rally by year end. Sailor says Bitcoin is still on track to hit 1 million, and I say Bitcoin will crash all the way up, because this is how every cycle ends, in despair before liftoff.
You can imagine that the banks were afraid to get involved with crypto under the previous administration.
you know, getting a supportive White House, a supportive cabinet, a supportive head of the Treasury, and then a law that says that it is legal for you to do this, I think was pretty important. Then that has resulted in an avalanche of institutional adoption, and now you have companies like JP Morgan, right, and Bank of America and Wells Fargo and BNY Mellon and PNC Bank and Citi that are all announcing their support for this asset class. And if the trillion-dollar banks are willing to custody and they're willing to extend credit and they're willing to handle the asset class and they're willing to bank the crypto industry, that's really the necessary condition to 10x from here. Like Bitcoin got to 100,000 without their help, but getting to 1 million requires the banks to bank the asset. And so the next 4-year period is really about banking Bitcoin and the support for digital assets in general by the major establishment of bankers in the United States. And everybody else in the world, right? You can imagine the bankers in Australia, Canada, Singapore, the Middle East, and Europe, Mexico, they all follow the U.S. banking standard. And so what you have is an avalanche or a sea change here, and the headwinds have become tailwinds.
Okay, so that's what got us here. Let's just talk about the short term, 2025 year end. Where does it end up? Because I've heard everything from 100 to 200,000.
Yeah, well, the consensus of all the equity analysts, and there's like a dozen of them that cover our stock, is north of 150,000. Our corporate guidance is targeted at $150,000 by the end of the year.
Right.
The AI bubble bursting may be the final warning shot. The world just learned what happens when you bet on infinite promises instead of finite truth. Money flows to truth, and the truth lives on the Bitcoin network. So light one up, touch some grass, zoom out, and remember, when they panic, you stack. Because, well, every meltdown in fiat land is another bullish signal for Bitcoin. Oh, holy crap! Mining Disrupt is next week? Get those tickets to Mining Disrupt 2025. See the future of Bitcoin mining up close in Dallas, Texas, November 11th through the 13th. The biggest names in the industry. Cutting edge rigs, Bitcoin, and AI integration, the signal you won't get anywhere else. Grab your tickets today and use promo code SimplyBitcoin for 20% off, and we'll see you there. Hey, hope you guys enjoyed this one. Smash the like, subscribe, give us a pat by sharing the Sound Money Gospel, set those notifications for the best in Bitcoin news delivered to you daily. I love you guys. Catch you next time. Peace.
If you prefer to go down with the ship, you.